Hi, I'm Hazel, and here are 10 big class changes on the Battle for Azeroth Alpha. Of course, it's alpha and it's early, so none of these things are guaranteed to make it into the game, but they should give you a sense of the direction that we are heading. First up, and this affects quite a few different classes, weapon damage scaling is being changed to more of like an attack power damage scaling for weapon-based abilities. Now that sounds very big and very scary and kind of vague, but smarter people than me have mathed it out, and it turns out that it's not really that much of a big deal. The new damage formula in BfA uses both weapon damage and attack power to calculate the damage of all non-casting attacks. What does that mean? For players, not that much. You will still hit things and they will still hurt. Basically, it just means that weapon item level will matter more equally for different classes, as opposed to where it is right now in Legion, where it's much more important for a class like an Arms Warrior than it would be for a class like a Monk. Next up, over in Druidland, Displacer Beast has been removed and replaced with a new ability called Tiger Dash. Now, this definitely makes more thematic sense. You know, when you watch the vanilla cinematic that has a druid running through the forest in cat form, she's not like running through the forest and then teleporting ahead because she's a magic teleport cat, she's pretty much just running. On the gameplay side of things though, this does work out to be a fair bit less mobility, and it's gonna have a really big impact on the way that druids are played in Arena. On the bright side, the new name is cute. Next up, we check in with monks and find that leg sweep has now been made baseline for all 3 monk specs. You no longer have to take a talent for it, and if you would still like to take a talent for it, you can take the Tiger Tail Sweep talent to improve it even further. On the BfA Alpha, quite a few different classes, such as Shadow Priest, are having their AoE stuns removed, so this is being set up as a key monk mechanic and a really strong reason to bring a monk to your Mythic Plus dungeon. Next, a change that affects many classes, raid buffs are back. Power Word, Fortitude, Arcane Intellect, Battle Shout, you name it, they're coming back. From a gameplay standpoint, this doesn't actually mean all that much, it's just an extra button that you press when you're setting up, but it does mean that in PvP, rebuffing is going to once again be an important skill, as well as using buffs as dispel protection, and then in a raid environment, raid leaders will want to consider buff coverage when they're planning out their raid comp. Next up, if you take a look at Elemental Shamans on the BfA Alpha, you will see a fun little rework to the Fire and Storm Elemental. So they are now 2.5 minutes down from 5, and rather than just smacking dudes, the new ones will smack dudes and also give you unique combat buffs. So the Fire Elemental, which is baseline, will smack dudes, and he will also reduce the cooldown of your Lava Surge and cause your Flame Shock ticks to generate Maelstrom. If you choose to upgrade your Fire Elemental with a talent to make him into a Storm Elemental, he will hurl wind at dudes, which generates Maelstrom for you, and each time that you cast Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning, the cast time of Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning is reduced by 3%, stacking up to 20 times. Basically, you just throw down your Storm Elemental and you look at him and you go, I am the Storm too, and then you just start hurling out Lightning Bolts and Chain Lightnings like you're Zeus. Sounds fun. Next, over in Prot Warrior tanking, Ignore Pain is seeing a redesign. Old Ignore Pain would spend rage to reduce your damage taken. New Ignore Pain has a set duration of 4 seconds, and during that time, 60% of your incoming damage damages your rage instead. Prot Warriors are also seeing a couple of other targeted nerfs, such as Shield Block costing 35 rage up from 15, Shield Slam will generate 15 rage down from 20, and generally speaking, it looks like the decisions that you make to spend your resources will be more important as a Prot Warrior in BfA because you will have less of them to spend. Next, let's talk about hunter pet changes. So currently in Legion, you get a pet and you say, be a tank, or be cunning, or be mean. In BfA, you cannot do that anymore. Each pet family will be either ferocity, cunning, or tenacity, and you cannot change the spec of your pet. It is determined by its family. Supposedly, the different specs are supposed to be roughly equally viable in a variety of environments, so it shouldn't make that big of a difference, but you know, we'll see. So here are the actual differences. In BfA, the pet spec will determine a passive buff and an active ability. So any ferocity pet will give you and your pet 3% leech, and then access to the Bloodlust Heroism ability. Any tenacity pet will give you 10% increased maximum health and a short damage reduction cooldown, and all the cunning pets will give you 8% base movement speed, which I like, and Master's Callback. All pets from any spec will get dash and growl, and then the specific pet family abilities are getting some shaking up too. Basically, your pet choice should have more meaning, but you should also have more options, I think. Next, take a look at Paladins, and you will find some changes to Divine Steed and Blessing of Freedom. Don't worry, they're still there, they just have longer cooldowns now. Apparently, moving fast is not part of your class fantasy. It's probably hard to really move it with all of that heavy armor on, and you have been too busy praying to hit the gym. I'm sorry. Next, Affliction Warlocks will be once again using Shadowbolt as their filler instead of, drain soul, drain life, drain, big drainy drain beam. You will no longer have to roleplay as the lower end of a bathtub. Shadowbolt Warlock is the Warlock of my youth, and I'm just really excited to see it coming back. You guys can leave the heavy beam channeling to the Shadow Priests. We look better doing it anyways. Finally, speaking of priests, Mind Seer is back as a button. You press the button and you start to Mind Seer stuff, and I am so happy. I have been complaining about this one for I would say years, but I don't remember how long Legion has been. This means that I no longer have to pretend that I am yellow and happy in order to run old dungeons. This means that I now have a discrete button to switch to when facing a lot of stacked targets, you know? If once it gets to like 6 or 7, or we don't know the exact number yet. But there will be a break point where you can finally lay down your weary Shadow Word Pain fingers and just press this button and wait for it to be over. I don't even need it to do a lot of damage. I'm just so happy to have that button back. And as a last bonus tidbit of info, speaking of buttons that Shadow Priests are getting back, we're getting Leap of Faith back. There's nothing better than just micromanaging the positioning of all of your raid mates, which, you know, people seem to really appreciate. You can either pull them out of the fire, or, you know, you can pull them into the fire. It really depends on what kind of a Shadow Priest you are. So those are some class changes from the BfA Alpha. Subscribe and ring the bell to keep up with new WoW videos from me, or WoW live streams if that's your cup of tea, and I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye!